I mean, it's a pretty fair analogy, but the big thing is like you said, Intel's still good. I mean, it's still a viable CPU. If you put in a 6-core Intel CPU and a 6-core AMD CPU, the average user is not going to notice the difference. Not really.
No, probably not, especially when they add hyper-threading to the 6-core, I guess. That's the one thing I would say is you will notice the difference with the i5 6-cores right now. Like, plenty of people complain of stuttering. Actually, even in like Battlefield 5, it's funny when they complain of stuttering because they have, I don't know, like an 8400. I'm like, yeah, you have 6 threads. They're running at 3 gigahertz. There's some stuttering in that game, and unfortunately, Intel didn't give you guys hyper-threading at that price point. I have an old 6700K that is 8 threads. It's actually kind of better because it clocks faster.
Yeah, that's really the big thing is, I mean, Intel, all they have to do is just enable hyper-threading. That was one of their biggest misses. They should have launched...
They should, yeah.
They should have just put hyper-threading on everything once Zen came out. That would have helped them out tremendously. I mean, in reality, for gamers and the average user, 4-core 8 threads is going to last the rest of this generation because games are coded with 8 threads in mind, and IPC is so much higher than what's in consoles. That would be fine. So, Intel, yeah, they're not in as bad a shape as they could be, and honestly, I think it's due to AMD screwing themselves over, and that's something that I messaged Cortex after his video. I sent him a giant wall of text, and he and I are going to have a discussion here in a couple of weeks about what he went over, and he's right on all of his points, but I think it ultimately comes down to AMD does not know how to market, and they just don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I'll try to save some of the prediction stuff for what we expect next year. I do want to come back to the subject of threads, how long they will last, because before we do that, though, I think I just took so up the beginning of the conversation. Expectations. To be honest, what I remember at the turn of the beginning of this year was that hype around AMD was just at a fever pitch, like more than I've ever seen.
Terrible Q1 earnings, but it still spiked up through the roof. Nobody cared. That's how good expectations were, that even a poor earnings call and everybody just bought in.
And everyone it was just non-stop talking about Navi and Zen 2, which I would say in retrospect, I think Zen 2 met expectations. I know some people don't think it did, but to be honest, it uses less energy than I expected. And it's better at certain things than I think a lot of other people expected. No, it doesn't hit 5 gigahertz, though. I mean, that's really the only thing you can say, at least the ones they're selling.
I think we were expecting higher frequency but lower IPC.
Yeah.
So we got higher IPC but lower frequency. So I agree. I think they hit the real-world performance targets that we all wanted them to. It just, they went about it in a slightly different way. Instead of the bigger numbers on the box, which, you know, people that don't pay attention don't really understand that. But, yeah, their IPC gain was huge.
Yeah, and I think if we're being honest, my first video, I think, I mean, I made a couple that were terrible. In fact, the first one I never even released. I might watch it with Dan and just release the audio in the podcast, and then Dan can describe how stupid I look. But, so, the one that actually got some amount of views was Reality Will Catch Up with Intel. And I think this kind of ties into what we were just talking about, that I agree. For the next year, Intel can get by doing what they're doing. They don't really care that much about Cascade Lake, and frankly, they just sell those to OEMs. In that video I recently did talking about how they have a price for OEMs that's, well, it's not even just half as much. It's really, on average, about a third as much is what they're charging on Newegg. That's where those Cascade Lake X i9s go, where Intel makes all their money. They go to HP, they put them in Omen pre-built gaming, computers that marketed as having 14 cores, i9s at 5 gigahertz. That's where all the money's made there. They can get away with that a little longer. But I am, and I've always been very outspoken about this, of the opinion that this parade will not go on forever, that they have a ticking time bomb here, and they better hope, they really better hope their 10 nanometer will yield next year, which I think it will, from what I'm told, but we'll see. You can never be sure with that. And Zen 3 could be that little bit more needed to push things over the edge. And something I talked about in my last podcast near the end there is worse. The difference in gaming performance between the 3600 and the 9900 KF, you know, we're talking about something for almost triple the price, is like 15%. I don't know, right?
It's about 5.
Yeah, it's 5%. So here's Intel's rush against time. AMD right now, it just completely clobbers Intel in everything but gaming. But people will buy those CPUs if they gain 5% better. They will, and Intel's got, you know, the name brand recognition. However, if AMD's Zen 3 is, and they're just, you know, it's a new architecture, they're redesigning the CCXs. If that gets 10% more IPC, which I don't think is out of the question, and it does get, at least what they say, which is about 100, 200 megahertz higher, if the problem isn't that now the, you know, what would we call it, the 4900 X12 core now beats the 9900 KS in gaming. That's not the problem for Intel. The problem for Intel is that now when you move up AMD's single-threaded performance by, let's say it's 15%, or even just 10, now AMD's $200 CPU beats Intel's top chip probably at everything. That's the problem Intel has to worry about at the end of next year, I would say. So I'm going to think get away with it for now. But as things stand, I mean, their AMD lineup's a joke. At least in Europe, people are buying AMD in larger numbers. Seem more discerning than us, I guess. I don't know. And once you move that single-threaded up by 10%, it's just complete game over, not just in the high end, but it's like what you price a 9900 at. When it lives into the 4600 and everything.
If they need to, I mean, what was it? The Q6600 launched at $900. In less than a year, it was $200. They could drop the 9900K to $150 if they need to. If they feel that, okay, yeah, so they're beating us across the board, we're losing sales, well, we're just going to knock, or they'll probably do it in small increments. They'll knock like 25% off, get a bunch of sales, knock another 25% off, get a bunch more sales. They can just keep going down, and AMD could follow if they wanted to, or come out with cheaper SKUs or whatever. But honestly, I think Intel's just trying to wait out the clock. Exactly. I think that.
But there is a very real clock there that will affect them if they don't hit it.
Right, but I mean, if you look at the Pentium 4 versus the Athlon XP and then the Athlon 64, it lost to both. Pretty bad to the XP and then horribly to the Athlon 64. And that was a good 4-year period there that Intel was basically irrelevant. They were completely worthless and worse at everything across the board. And they were still able to ride out that storm. The big thing was is that they had to come back big. Now, here's the thing, and this is the reason why 7 nanometer matters. 10 nanometer doesn't matter to Intel. It's not going to give them what they need. They need to get the 7 nanometer. They need to get there before TSMC if possible, and before AMD can get their products onto it. And what they really need to do,
their equivalent or whatever.
Yeah, they're 5 nanometer. Yeah. So they need to regain some sort of advantage, or just come out with an architecture kind of like what the Core 2 was that was so much better than what AMD could possibly have. So imagine if Intel had a 200% IPC increase on their next CPU. It sounds impossible because we haven't seen such things in a long time.
Golden Code should be 40% better or more than Skylake. And I think some people hear a 40% IPC increase and they say that's impossible. I'm like, well, it's been a while since Skylake came out, guys. A 40% IPC increase in 2021 isn't just, that's expected. They better get at least 40% by then because AMD is increasing IPC too.
Right, yeah, and with AMD constantly increasing IPC, I mean, Intel could come back in the game, like I said, if they hit back hard with, if they get the 3D stacking done first, and there could be massive IPC gains there with on-die DRAM and stuff like that. That could get you a 100% IPC increase, in theory, if they do it right.
You know, it could. That's what TSMC was talking about at Hotchip for half the presentation. It absolutely could. Yeah.
Yeah, if they come back and just make Zen 5 look, ridiculously slow, even though it's such a massive leap for them, Intel over Intel, it's not impossible, and as long as they have the time to get there, there's always that chance. So I think it'll be fine for them, and like I said, the most telling thing is the reaction on Wall Street. the Q3 earnings for Intel was a giant boom. They just skyrocketed after their Q3 earnings. And I was expecting AMD to have a similar reaction because Q3, Zen 2 was out now, Navi was out, so that should be factored in. And they did not care. AMD's earnings...
AMD's it's up about, it's up since earnings.
Yeah, but it dropped immediately as soon as earnings came out. Part of it's due to the fact that AMD doesn't know how to sell and market. I actually read the earnings report because I actually lost $200 on AMD that day. I'm like, come on, guys. It was mostly due to the fact that they don't know how to present their own information. They might be very smart, very technically engineered. You know, their engineers might be very good, but they don't have a single person in there that knows how to sell anything. What they did is they lumped their enterprise sales with their semi-custom. So we're at the end of a console generation. So their semi-customs could be down like 8,000%. You know, it's going through the floor. So what that did is they took all of their EPYC sales, all their Rome sales, and ripped that through the floor with it. So it made it look like they were losing so much ground in the server market. Now, for those of you that don't play in the stock market, you have literally 3 seconds to read this giant report and make up your determination whether or not you're buying or selling if you're already in. So you have to be super fast with this, and when you see the highlighted numbers...
Good point, I agree. They were terrible marking their graphics sales, too. And correct me if I'm wrong, I basically skimmed the report, but one thing I thought I saw was that their graphic sales overall were flat, despite being way down in professional graphic sales. Was that correct? I thought I read that in there.
Honestly, they lumped that in with their CPU sales, and that actually looked like it was up on the quick uptake. Like, I didn't dive that deep into it because it was basically, they hit their projected targets overall, so it was like wash. But they lumped CPU, like desktop CPU and GPU all in one category. And then they have basically the semi-custom and enterprise lumped into one category. And then that one was obviously down, I think it was like 300%. So it made it look like EPYC was not doing well. Because at the end of the day, nobody really cares about consumer grade stuff.
Well, yes, but they made, what I believe I read is that, you know, they don't make nearly as much money from their professional graphics as they are from EPYC, not yet at least. And I believe I read their graphics sales in the professional market were substantially down, like, you know, way, way, way down, and yet they basically broke even on graphic sales, meaning that Navi's selling so well to gamers that it made up for that downturn in the professional graphics market. Which I thought a lot of people overlooked. I saw maybe one analyst talk about that. I'm like, so Navi at the very least is also selling gangbusters compared to their previous gens, so they basically just glossed over that. I mean, I think that's a very big deal long term that they don't even have a flagship. I mean, yeah, I guess their flagship is the 5700 XT right now. Graphics card competing, and yet they're managing to make more money in consumer graphics than they've made for, I mean, what was it? It was like 2014 or something, wasn't it?
Well, it was the most revenue that they made since 2005.
For the company-wide.
For the company. But yeah, no, as far as like the individual graphics stuff, I didn't dive that deep into it, because honestly, to Wall Street, that doesn't matter. The biggest thing is the server side. That's where the real money is, and that's professional graphics actually on AMD don't matter.
Well, and that's, I don't blame AMD for charging more for Threadripper, and I think next year really is the year where you're just going to watch Intel's prices continue to slowly go down as they have, well, absolutely nothing in the desktop space. And you're going to see AMD raise margins, at least for next year, because they need to get as much money, well, Intel has nothing, as they can before 2022. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. And I mean, people pay whatever they want for Threadripper, by the way. I see it. I actually don't agree that there's that much to complain about with Threadripper. You think about it, they increased prices on the 24 core $100 or something versus what they were selling the previous gen, and because of how Zen 2 works, it's, you know, 50% better. 50% year-over-year performance increase for 10% more budget and platform, where the competition has quite literally nothing. Like, it's so funny how little Intel has in that market now.
I think the real gripe, like from Cortex's video, is the fact that AMD's been buying goodwill with Zen 1 and Zen Plus. Basically, they were underpricing their CPUs to try and buy goodwill, and now that they are in the lead, they have the technological advantage. That goodwill is, they don't need to buy goodwill. It's either you want the best, you pay for the best. And they could have charged whatever they wanted. If they wanted to, they could have charged $4,000 for the 32 core and been like, buy it or don't. And what are your options?
Well, your option is a $3,000 28 core from Intel, right? That's the funny thing people, AMD's done being a budget option, unfortunately, I think, across the board. But they're always going to try to give you better price performance for the time being. The 32 core is $1,000 cheaper than Intel's 28 core. Can you really blame them? That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I actually thought that they were priced a little bit cheap, but it keeps it in line with the mainstream desktop parts. So, this way you have kind of an upgrade path. If you're like, 16 cores won't quite cut it, you spend a few $100 more and then you get 24, a few $100 more and then you can get, 32. So, yeah, it definitely makes sense. I also think AMD is charging far too little for their EPYC CPUs. Their Max CPU is a little bit under $7,000. Intel's is like 14. So they're charging half as much as Intel.
I don't think that's going to last long either. I think you're going to see Zen 3 increase prices by, some amount. Enough that people will swallow it because they are still, a lot of servers are switching to EPYC, but they definitely wish they would have charged more. But I get what they did there. Like, AMD needs to take server market share now. That's their goal. Intel has nothing for a few years, but only a few years. They will come back with some pretty powerful stuff. So I understand it, being an account manager in the automotive industry, there are some accounts where it's like, I'm tired of taking this long to win this business. We're going to be aggressive this time. Could we maybe charge more? Maybe, but we need to take this market share right now, and I think that's what they did. And in hindsight, they should have definitely charged more though for EPYC. It was never that much about the price either, at least from anyone I've talked to, a server. It's really just about, can I rely on this? Is this worth the effort to switch over time?
Right.
They almost never mention price, actually. They do eventually, but...
Well, that's because most of the people that you or I would speak to, they don't pay the bill. Yeah, they just say, this is what I need, and then some accountant somewhere pays the bill. So, but yeah, it's ultimately down to, will it work? And price is pretty much irrelevant. And that's the reason why we're seeing a lot of prices being inflated. And my perspective on the tech industry has evolved once I started realizing that there's so many people out there, businesses, that it doesn't matter what it costs. Yeah. So there's always going to be, the tide's always going to continue to rise, is the way that that's going to work. And we're going to continue to go up and up and up and up unless new competition comes in, which is what we started this conversation about. And that's the only thing that could disrupt it enough to where it's like, okay, we got to pull back because now we have to compete against this other guy over here. And on the consumer side, the way that I started looking at things is you just have to pick a target price point. For me, the $200 CPU market is where the mainstream CPU needs to be. I don't care how much faster it is, how much slower it is next generation. It doesn't matter. As long as it does what the average person needs to do and it costs $200 or less, so the 3600 definitely fits that bill, that's where you need to have it. This is when Intel got into troubles, when the $200 i5s stopped being good enough because there weren't any threads. Once that happened, that's when the CPU market became an issue for gamers. Once we had 4-core, 8-thread or better, 6-core, 6-thread, or 6-core, 12-thread now, at that $200 price point, CPU is no longer relevant. You shouldn't be spending more than that as a mainstream gamer. And then on GPU side, it's really between the $200 and $400 price point. Anything beyond that is basically just irrelevant because they'll just keep updating prices. Like we talked about in our last video, if they want to charge $10,000 for a GPU that's 15 times stronger than a 2080 Ti, who's to say that they can't?
And someone will buy it.
Somebody will buy it, yeah.
I guess I'll say this. Did you expect anything stronger than the 5700 XT from AMD before the end of the year?
I figured that they could do it if they wanted to, but after looking at the situation, It doesn't make sense for them.
That's what I think's going on, and I always find it's a hilarious thing. You'll see this in tons of forums where fanboys just go, AMD can't even make, what does it still say?
Like they compete,
Yeah.
why do they bother?
Why do they think, why do these AM dumps think that, AMD can compete with the 2080 Ti? There's no way they'll make a card that strong. And I'm like, you really think it's that hard for this multi-billion-dollar company to make a product, 30% stronger than what they have now? You don't think they could do that? I think they could. They just don't care.
That's really what it comes down to. And that's one of the big things I'm going to be talking with, Cortex about is that, honestly, I laid out kind of what I just said about how NVIDIA is doing things right. AMD kind of jumped the gun, I think. I think going to 7 nanometer really hurt them. As much as the hype really built up this year, I think that's what ultimately really, really hurt them, is the fact that these cards came out so late. I mean, they're basically halfway through the 2000 series generation. So we know 3000 will be out in 6 to 9 months from now. And we only have one chip from AMD. And the fact that their 7 nanometer wafers are becoming a premium, they're literally wasting their time building GPUs because they're making many thousands of dollars on EPYC CPUs. So it's like, why waste the fab, the 7 nanometer fab space or capacity on GPUs? And that's the reason why I think they decided not to build a big chip. They decided to go small because, well, they can get a lot of them out of, per wafer, plus laptops is a big deal. So I think that's why the 5500 is coming out. But I don't even think they really wanted to do the 5500.
I'm honestly entirely surprised that's built on 7 nanometer. Like, I really thought there was a chance they would put that on, like, Global Foundries' new 12 nanometer FDX, which is about as efficient, so it'll be fine. I mean, the die would be bigger because, it's on 12 nanometer instead of 7, but it would have, it's something that actually confused me. I was very surprised that everything so far with Navi is 7 nanometer, that they haven't, even just done some kind of updated porting, like a smaller Vega or Polaris card even. Then just call it the 5500, maybe give it some of the new features, RDNA has. Because, man, putting everything on 7 nanometer doesn't make any sense. Look at the 5500. That's 150 millimeter squared down, I believe, around there. So that's double, that's twice as big as 2 Zen 2 chiplets.
No, I don't think it's quite that big. I thought it was about 100 millimeters squared. It's bigger than a Zen chiplet.
Oh, yeah. And they're not making Zen 2 chiplet profit margins on this thing.
Nope.
So that actually surprised me. I will say that. I'm surprised there wasn't some bigger Navi because they could have done it. But if there's not going to be a bigger Navi, I'm surprised they're releasing a smaller one on 7 nanometer. They don't need 7 nanometer to compete with NVIDIA's low end. NVIDIA's low end is a complete joke. They could have put it on anything, really. And
I'm assuming they already invested in, getting it onto 7 nanometer. And this is really where AMD has a bit of an issue. They're not very malleable. Like how you said, why not switch it over to the 12 nanometer over here? That would have made a lot more sense. They should have actually launched the whole Navi RDNA lineup on 12 nanometer at Global Foundries or TSMC. It doesn't matter where. But, keep the fabrication on 7 nanometers going. But they just don't want to invest, however many more millions of dollars it is to get that going because their graphics division overall isn't going to be that profitable. So I just don't think that they want to put the investment in. So they're like, screw it. We'll just make whatever we can make. And for the most part, they just want to get these to OEMs and they want to get them in laptops. That's the big thing. They just want to get them into laptops so they have a presence in modern day laptops.
yeah, I thought that was hilarious, the TDP difference, or I guess they're now using TVP for the 5500, that the mobile version, will use around 50 to 75 watts, and then the desktop is like 110/150. It's like they're definitely giving desktop users the worst deals. They just don't care. But they don't, again though, they really don't need to care, right? That's one thing, looking back on this year, I think I misjudged, is I thought Navi had, so the original launch from Adored, right, I think we both agree that it was at least a legitimate leak, no matter what panned out from it. And the original leak was that Navi, the Navi you see in the 5700 will be clocked lower, it'd use about 100 watts, and they'd sell for 300. And I do think that was their initial plan, was we are going to make this way more efficient than NVIDIA, sell for $300, but they have problems with the larger dies. And as we know now, they said, screw the larger dies. We got the smaller ones working. Let's overclock them and sell them for 2070 prices. Why not? Why not sell them for that much? It won't be any more efficient than NVIDIA's current gen cards. But why do we care? People will buy it anyways if the performance was there. And I thought people wouldn't. Well, it turns out people will buy Navi this time. And I guess it is because AMD is perceived as a decent company now. And for this year, it was very funny watching the AMD's overall mind share just get them a lot of sales in all their departments, whereas before, it is annoying though to just think, so we were right, it was mind share, now they're selling graphics cards over twice the quantities of their previous gens. Doesn't matter that the 7000 series, let alone the 7000, the 6000, the 5000, the 4000 series were so much better price performance than NVIDIA. No one cared. Now they have the mind share. Yep. Now sales are good.
Well, I mean, it's been a while since AMD's been on parity. I mean, you and I have talked about it, and this is the reason why we took a lot of issue with the 5700 XT reviews, because we're like, guys, it draws the same amount of power, and, shader core to shader core, it performed roughly the same. So it's like, what were you really expecting here? I mean, I was expecting better power efficiency personally,
But again, the original leak, they were clocked lower, and they were supposedly, again, if you believe the leak, they were supposedly going to put like a 48 compute unit card at the level they put the 5700, but it was going to be clocked lower and a lot more efficient. And I think once again, just like Polaris, they overclocked the snot out of it to get as high of a price as they could.
Good.
oh yeah, I mean, you can definitely see the 5700 XT, the only reason why it draws so much power is because it's clocked too high. The regular 5700 is actually infinitely more efficient. I think it trades close with like the RTX 2060. Not even the Super. Like, it's actually about as efficient as this. Honestly, I laid out kind of what I just said about how NVIDIA is doing things right. Technical advantage.
What was it? Since like 2000.
Their own information. They might be very smart and very technically engineered. Their engineers might be very good, but they don't have a single person in there that knows how to sell anything. What they did is that the
Agreed. They were terrible marketing the graphics sales too. Correct me if I'm wrong. I basically skimmed the report for all.
So it made it look like Epic was not doing well, because at the end of the day, nobody really cares about consumer grade stuff.
Well, yes, but they made, what I believe I read is that, they don't make nearly as much money from their professional graphics as they are from Epic, not yet at least. And I believe I read their graphics sales to the professional market were substantially down, like, way, way, way down. And yet they basically broke even on graphics sales, meaning that Navi's selling so well to gamers that it made up for that downturn in the professional graphics market, which I thought a lot of people overlooked. I saw maybe one analyst talk about that. I'm like, so Navi at the very least is also selling gangbusters compared to their previous gens, so they basically just glossed over that. I mean, I think that's a very big deal long term, that they don't even have a flagship. I guess their flagship is the 5700 XT right now, graphics card competing, and yet they're managing to make more money in consumer graphics than they made for, what was it? Since like 2014 or something, wasn't it?
Well, it was the most revenue that they made since 2005.
For the company-wide.
For the company. But yeah, no, as far as like the individual graphics stuff, I didn't dive that deep into it, because honestly, to Wall Street, that doesn't matter. The biggest thing is the server side. That's where the real money is, and that's professional graphics actually on AMD don't matter.
Well, and I don't blame AMD for doing more for Threadripper, and I think next year really is the year where you're just going to watch Intel prices continue to slowly go down as they have, absolutely nothing in the desktop space. And you're going to see AMD raise margins, at least for next year, because they need to get as much money, Intel has nothing, as they can before 2022. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. And people will pay whatever they want for Threadripper, by the way. I actually don't agree that there's that much to complain about with Threadripper. You think about it, they increased prices on a 24 core $100 or something versus what they were selling at previous gen, and because of how Zen 2 works, it's so funny how little Intel has in that market now.
I think the real gripe, like from Cortex's video, is the fact that AMD's been buying goodwill with Zen 1 and Zen Plus. Basically, they were underpricing their CPUs to try and buy goodwill. And now that they are in the lead, they have the technological advantage. That goodwill is, they don't need to buy goodwill. It's either you want the best, you pay for the best. And they could have charged whatever they wanted. If they wanted to, they could have charged $4,000 for the 32 core and been like, buy it or don't. And what are your options?
Well, your option is a $3,000 28 core from Intel, right? That's the funny thing, people. AMD's done being a budget option, unfortunately, I think, across the board. But they're always going to try to give you better price performance for the time being. The 32 core is $1,000 cheaper than Intel's 28 core. Can you really blame them? That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I actually thought that they were priced a little bit cheap, but it keeps it in line with the mainstream desktop parts. So, this way you have kind of an upgrade path. If you're like, 16 cores won't quite cut it, you spend a few $100 more and then you got 24, a few $100 more and then you can get, 32. So, yeah, it definitely makes sense. I also think AMD is charging far too little for their EPYC CPUs. Their Max CPU is a little bit under $7,000. Intel's is like 14. So they're charging half as much as Intel for.
I don't think that's going to last long either. I think you're going to see Zen 3 increase prices by some amount, but enough that people will swallow it because they are still, a lot of servers are switching to EPYC. But they definitely wish they would charge more. But I get what they did there. Like, AMD needs to take server market share now. That's their goal. Intel has nothing for a few years, but only a few years. They will come back with some pretty powerful stuff. So I understand it, being an account manager in the automotive industry, there are some accounts where it's like, I'm tired of taking this long to win this business. We're going to be aggressive this time. Could we maybe charge more? Maybe, but we need to take this market share right now, and I think that's what they did. And in hindsight, they should have definitely charged more though for EPYC. It was never that much about the price either, at least from anyone I've talked to, a server. It's really just about, can I rely on this? Is this worth the effort to switch over time?
Right.
They almost never mention price, actually. They do eventually, but...
Well, that's because most of the people that you or I would speak to, they don't pay the bill. Yeah, they just say, this is what I need, and then some accountant somewhere pays the bill. So, but yeah, it's ultimately down to, will it work? And price is pretty much irrelevant. And that's the reason why we're seeing a lot of prices being inflated. And my perspective on the tech industry has evolved once I started realizing that there's so many people out there with businesses that it doesn't matter what it costs. So there's always going to be, the tide's always going to continue to rise, is the way that that's going to work. Things are going to continue to go up and up and up and up unless new competition comes in, which is what we started this conversation.